Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. If you have a mom, you'll love our podcast. Here are your hosts, former Fox News political correspondent Joel Waldman and his mom, Carmela, a licensed marriage therapist and Holocaust survivor.
Carmela, we're live on the air, and you're
care.
already bossing me around and irritating me. Listen, I want to talk about something off the top today, and that is perseverance, dedication, stick-to-itiveness. These are all things that my wife does not possess.
Oh my God! What the hell is wrong with
However,
you? You will end up like James with your wife one day cleaning out your house.
We didn't interview him yet. Once again, Carmela's talking about an interview.
We interviewed him. He's lying.
These are all things. I love my wife to death. She's a news person like myself.
Talk about you.
And listen, and she has never put together a reel. She hasn't worked. She worked. And what happens yesterday? She gets a call from a network, from a new network show.
Don't do this.
She speaks to them. She happens to have brown skin and speaks Spanish and has breasts.
She's Latina.
And she speaks to them. And when they ask her what questions does she have? She asks, how is the lighting? Because that's how she looks on camera. And then she says, oh, do I have to leave? This is a national show that she's interviewing for. Do I have to leave Miami-Dade County? Like there's an earthquake, a 7.2 in Haiti. She's like, I can't really do that. And I'm not even sure if I can get up to Broward, which is 20 minutes from our house. And all these things come up. And the following day, her agent calls and says, Ileana, they loved you. They want you to start next week. Am I bitter? Do I have a chip on my shoulder? No, I have what is known as a boulder on my shoulder. I'm angry. I'm white. I'm a minority right now, and I'm pissed right now, and I'm annoyed.
Well, deal with it. White men have been ruling for too long.
And that is why we have a lovely, lovely African-American guest on today, James Donaldson. He's coming up after the break.
He already came on. He twists it around.
We already interviewed him, but he's coming up for you guys in a second. But he is he was a former...
Why cannot we talk about how wonderful he was?
He was a 14-year NBA veteran, 7'2", a gentle giant, and he has a wild, crazy, unbelievable story, and we'll hear that next on the Main Schmooze with James Donaldson.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the Main Schmooze.
So, Carmela, a few weeks back, we had our first professional athlete on Surviving the Survivor. His name was Nate Rock Quarry out of Portland, Oregon. He actually fought for a UFC middleweight title. And this week brings us to our next pro athlete. This guy is a giant in more ways than one. He is a former NBA All-Star, played in the National Basketball Association, I believe, for 14 years, and then also played overseas. He is the great James Donaldson. James, how are you?
Hey guys, I'm doing just great. Good to see you both. At least I saw you. I saw you both. But it's great to be here this morning and this afternoon. Thank you so much.
We're having some technical difficulties on our end. So let me tell the audience a little bit about James Donaldson. I mentioned he is a gentle giant, 7 feet 2 inches tall. James Donaldson is a retired professional basketball player. He played 14 seasons in the NBA, and that was back when I watched the NBA. Watched him and Bill Cartwright and other great players of the generation. Then James went on to play in several leagues across Europe, but he went on to become so much more: a husband, a stepfather, a business owner, and his life was seemingly perfect. He even said, "I had lived a charmed life. I had no problems, none." Until a few years ago when suddenly everything changed, and we'll find out what those changes were right now. James, thanks again for joining us. So you were living the childhood dream. I have a 2-year-old boy who walks around with a basketball and a baseball, and, you know, he watches guys like you on the TV already and says, maybe one day I'll be a pro basketball player. And I say, son, you need to be a UFC fighter. And my wife and my mother say, you're crazy. But so at what age did you know you had this passion for basketball?
Well, I was kind of a late bloomer, came to the party a little bit late. So it wasn't until my senior year in high school, I started playing basketball. And from that, I was able to get a college athletic scholarship to Washington State University based purely on potential of, what the coaches saw. They saw potential. They saw I was a hard worker. I was eager to learn and push myself. And so I went to Washington State University after 1 year of organized basketball and set the bench my first couple of years, just developing and really getting into it. And by the time I was a junior at WSU, I kind of felt like maybe I got some kind of career in this in the future. So that's what I kept working towards.
Now, Carmela, my dear mother, knows less about sports than, I don't know, the person who knows the least about it in the world. But to become a pro basketball player of your caliber, having started in high school, is just an incredible feat. I mean, I don't know if that could be done today. So you go to Washington State, go Cougs, and
yes,
and you obviously develop into, you develop your talent there, and then you graduate. By the way, when did your height pop in? Where you said you were a late bloomer, but when did you grow?
Well, I was always tall. So even when I first started basketball, I was almost 7 feet then. I kept growing for a couple of years in college, so I topped out at 7'2".
Wow. So you graduate and you get drafted. You make yourself eligible for the NBA draft. And what draft pick were you?
I want to say in the 4th round, 70-something pick with the Seattle Supersonics, who just won the championship in 1979. So that's the year I was graduated and the year I was picked as a draft pick.
James, my mother has never been this silent for this long. I love it. She hasn't.
James, don't let it fool you, James. You know why?
Okay.
I have so much to talk to you, but that will come later in the hour.
I want to get
so I am just waiting. I'm raring to go.
So
I'm sure.
James, I don't want to make you feel bad, but I'm 52, and I watched you when I was a kid, and I watched guys like Bill Cartwright and Bernard King. I was a big Knicks fan, but so you played against some of the greats. You played against Artis Gilmore, Darryl Dawkins, Moses Malone, Truck Robinson, Mo Lucas. Out of those guys, who was the toughest opponent?
Wow, it's hard to say. Remember when the NBA put together their first all-time greatest 50 players in NBA history list?
Yeah.
This was back in the 90s, I think it was. And maybe in the early 2000s. I looked at that list, and it turns out I played against 35 of those all-time great 50 greatest players ever. And so I was in that great golden era of NBA basketball. And I break it down like this. I think the most unstoppable player ever for me to guard was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Mhm.
And
Even
but I
I
would say
heard the
that
name.
yes, Kareem, all-time leading scorer, all-time everything. To me, the GOAT, the greatest player ever, although he doesn't get that kind of recognition along with the Michael Jordans and those kind of guys. But the most unstoppable player, and I played the center position, our most difficult player to guard was probably Moses Malone, followed by Akeem Olajuwon.
Interesting. Akeem the Dream,
yes.
Carmela. Do you know what college he played for?
No.
Houston. These are
James, he loves it that I don't know because he likes to humiliate me. That's the whole purpose of this team here. So the son could humiliate the mother.
Karm, these are absolute legends.
I have to tell you one thing. May I just insert something that when I heard about having you on our podcast, I went on the internet and I looked up some of the games that they had on the internet. I must tell you that to me it was really breathtaking. How you always I have I'm probably dyslexic, but how you always hit it into the basket, I don't know how you did it. I was sitting totally, I couldn't wait to meet him.
A small correction. You don't hit it into the basket, you shoot into the basket.
Shoot it into the basket.
That's right.
No, but you have to understand that to me it's an art form.
Karm, you're ready to be an NBA an NBA scout now.
It's unbelievable.
So, James, let me ask you, is it a weird thing because, since high school, you've kind of identified as a pro athlete? And I'm sure when people see you today and they see a 7'2" gentleman coming out of a car, they are like, wow, this guy must be an ex-athlete. I mean, is it difficult to be kind of identified with that way your entire life?
I don't think so, because for me, basketball was just something I happened to be doing. It was never my identity and who I was. Now, people will readily put me in that category as a basketball player just due to my physical stature. But if I didn't have this physical stature, they would never know I was a basketball player. I would never talk about it. I don't talk sports. I'm like your mom. I'm a very non-sports kind of person. I keep up enough to have a basic conversation, but I don't really get into sports as a fan. And so it never really was part of my identity. It was just something I happened to be doing for 20 years of my life.
You want to hear something funny? When you say it wasn't really central to your identity, I use the same thing when, I am a survivor of the Holocaust when I was very, very, very little child. And Joel said once when we started, he said, well, let's talk about the Holocaust. I said, no, that's not central to my identity. I use the exact same words. And I can totally relate to what you're saying because I know that later on in life, you have been doing things that you were trying to do the same thing I was doing before I retired, really helping others. You were into that mode. And I saw that that's also. Right. I spied on you on the internet.
So, James, we'll slide off the basketball topic in a moment, but do you still keep in touch? You ever talk to Kareem or any of these guys?
Not Kareem. Kareem's always been a kind of distant personality, so to speak.
Yeah.
So he, unless you're in his real tight, intimate circle, you're not going to get too close to Kareem. But I've been part of the Retired NBA Players Association for about 12 years now. Uh-huh. I was a board member for 8 years. And in that association, we have about 800 former NBA, ABA, now WNBA players who are all retired from the sport. And this gives us a nice little association to stay in touch with each other, to have an annual conference wherever in the country where most of us can come together and really kind of fraternize and be part of what's going on. The association is trying to do things as far as helping the players with that transition. Because unlike me and your mom, I mean, most of the guys, basketball really does become their identity. And once their basketball career is over, they're totally lost. They have no idea who they are, what they're going to do next. They still have 40 or 50 years of life ahead of them. And they really, really struggle with that transition. So this is the job of the Retired Association. And I was a board member helping with scholarship opportunities, health screenings, career trainings, resume building, all those kind of things, basic things that the guys just don't know.
Yeah. And how are the players today doing after the game, like in terms of finances and stuff? Are they keeping their money? Are they blowing it? What's happening in that regard?
It's still a struggle for the vast majority of them. Most of us come from lower income families, disadvantaged communities and neighborhoods. And so we've never seen wealth. We've never had wealth. And then all of a sudden you get wealth as a 20-year-old or 22-year-old. You've got a whole family system that you feel obligated to support. And you do that for most of your career. And a lot of guys end up doing that for even years after their career. They go through 2 or 3 marriages, 2 or 3 divorces, a number of kids all over the country they have to support. This breaks most of the guys down. By the time they're 50 years of age, they are really in financial trouble.
Yeah, that's sad. I hope that changes. What do you think of these salaries now? I mean, they're insane. They're through the roof, right?
Right. Well, I think it's just a number. I mean, you can go through $1 million just as quickly as you can $100,000.
That's what I tell Joel. It's not how much you have; it's how much you spend.
That's right, and how much you keep.
And how much you keep. Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, with a 35% tax bracket, there goes a big chunk of it.
And then people forget to pay their taxes. That complicates things.
That's right. If you go through a divorce, there goes half of it. If you've got children, there goes tens of thousands of dollars a month in child support. So it goes very quickly if you're not smart about it. And most of us don't have the training and the background and information on how to really handle our financials. And we end up in a lot of trouble, most of us.
By the way, not related, but related. I saw an excellent doc on Netflix the other night called Malice in the Palace, which you should check out. It's about it was Indiana versus Detroit back in, I want to say mid 2000s. And it was when Ron Artest went into the stands.
Did you see it already?
Did you see the doc?
No, I haven't seen it, but I was in the league when that happened. So yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was interesting documentary. So
but
James,
wait 1 second. A very important thing. He got an award for the NBA. What is it? I will say something stupid, so help me out.
James is an NBA All-Star.
All-Star, that's what you are, an All-Star.
Yes.
Not everyone.
Not everyone is an All-Star.
So James,
we would not interview anybody who is not an All-Star.
So James, you say you don't identify as a basketball player. How do you identify then?
Just as a regular person who loves to give back, who cares about my community, about people around me. I'm a very giving person, very involved with my community. This is why I got involved with politics. Even when we had our business, we were very involved with a lot of the community aspects of the community where the business were located. We had 5 locations at one time. So involved with the Chambers of Commerce, mentoring groups, Rotary clubs, and just really, being part of the fabric of those communities. So that's how I identify myself. Even this current run for mayor, I was telling everybody, I'm just a concerned Seattle citizen. I've been here for 40 years. I'm not a politician, don't want to be a politics as usual kind of guy. I'm just a concerned citizen trying to make a difference. So that's the essence of who I am.
This was your second mayoral run. Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, you just sort of implied that you want to help the community. That's obviously kind of the impetus for getting involved in politics. But what really drove this decision this time around to run once again?
Well, I think the total ineptness of our elected officials in Seattle. They are just missing in action. Non-responsive, non-accountable. And politics, as you know, is run by special interests, and the same is true in Seattle. So we have special interest groups for the homelessness, anti-business, anti-police, just all these crazy special interest groups, environmentalists, bicyclists. And so it's hard to really get in there unless you're in bed with one of these special interest groups. And I refuse to get in bed with any of them. So I ran as a true outsider, bringing a lot of common sense issues and thoughts and plans to mind, trying to really connect with the common sense voters. But, as most elections, most of the voters stay home. So we only had 30% of the turnout. And that's just not enough for an outsider to win an election without special interest help.
It's amazing because you go on, I'm on Twitter all the time, and I'm working in news once again. I was a former political correspondent with Fox, and I'm back in the game.
Yes.
He quit Fox. I always have to say, because, just like the Holocaust can label you, or what you did for 20 years when you were younger can label you, Fox definitely can label you. He quit Fox.
That's right.
So now he's working for CBS.
It was cult-like. So anyway,
good.
The point being, you go on Twitter, and it seems like the entire world is mesmerized and really passionate about politics, but it's interesting to hear you say you only had 30% turnout, right? I mean, so at the end of the day, people are they're kind of indifferent at the end of the day.
Well, the very vocal ones, some are very vocal and they make a lot of noise, but the people take care of their daily business and COVID and all those things and making a living. And
that's right.
I don't think that when they say, they are Republicans or Democrats, I think that most of the people just want to be left alone and left in peace.
Me included.
True. But that's not how you make a change when people are calling for a change. It's the vocal minority. It's the squeaky wheel that gets the oil.
Yes.
And the vocal minority is very mobilized. They're very activated. And they're very activist, so they're going to vote. And they vote every time for their people. And the rest of us stay home. And this is what happens.
Yes.
So James, you said that, you didn't want to be a part of special interest groups. In this day and age, can you win if you don't, quote unquote, play the game?
You just said no. You didn't listen.
Well,
it's very hard.
If you are like an outsized personality, like a Donald Trump,
right.
Trump was not. Well, look at it. He wasn't with any special interests. That's right. He wasn't special interest. He overturned the money changer tables and exposed a lot of people and the dirty nature of politics. And they hated him for that, which is why they ran him out of there, and still have kept him quiet because of the things that he says. And I really believe he's standing for America first. And that is a way that, is kind of contrary to the last several generations of America being the policeman of the world, the support of the world, the leader of the free world. Mm-hmm. Trump brought it all in-house and said, no, we're going to take care of Americans first, in a very harsh personality that didn't go over very well. And so you can win if you're somebody like that, but you got to have a tremendous amount of backing and support. The Republican voters were ready for a change. They were done with politics as usual. They wanted an outsider, and Trump was up there beating all the Jeb Bushes and Mitt Romneys and everybody else to beat them all badly.
I'm curious, what do you think of his Twitter ban and Facebook ban and all this stuff?
I think it's terrible. I think it's very undemocratic. There goes our freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of gathering. all of our rights, constitutional rights, have been threatened by what the big tech companies have done and what our government is currently doing. The government will even censor you. The media, most of the media is very, very left-leaning and will not cover anything on the right side of things. This is not the America I knew and loved growing up, and really believe in democracy, which is the freedoms of all of these things that we fought so long and hard for.
Yeah.
So I'm totally against the ban.
Now it's interesting. I this week, obviously, with what's going on in Afghanistan, we kind of localized the story here. I spoke to the mother of a Marine Corps vet who was an infantryman in Afghanistan. He saw his best friend shot in the neck on day 2 there and killed, and he made it back. Sadly, he took his own life in 2013.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, she said to me, and I'm just kind of reliving the interview, it was very upsetting, but she basically said to me what you just said. She's like, the America that we once knew is gone. She's like, we've lost credibility in the world, and she doesn't think we're getting it back. What would you say to her?
I agree. Until we take care of our business at home amongst us Americans, right now we're very divided, very polarized, very political, and we just don't see eye to eye on either side of the aisle. You have 74 million people who voted for Trump, and they're being silenced. They're being ridiculed for not taking the vaccine. But, 2/3 of all African Americans have not been vaccinated either. But the media won't talk about that, see, because it's a political toy. And so this is not the America I enjoy. These are the changes I wanted to bring about to make sure everybody has their
not in Seattle. Maybe in another state, maybe in Ohio, Arkansas, or whatever.
Karm, Seattle's not a state, just so you know.
No, but not in Seattle. I know what I'm saying. I know what Seattle is.
Possibly, but you have to start somewhere and start to change.
But what I'm saying is that state in particular, if I understand
Washington State, Carmel.
If I know it's Washington State, damn it, Joel, I'll punch you out after it's over.
Yeah.
But I know it's Washington State because Seattle is
You're saying
all the
Seattle's
time
incredibly liberal, is what you're saying.
Incredibly liberal, and at least that's what we see on the television. That is, it's an extreme. So it's a very hard thing to go against that trend. As if you are running for mayor.
Yes, but keep in mind, it's very liberal at this point in time. See, this is all on a pendulum swing.
Oh, yeah, I believe in pendulum.
Yes, everything's a pendulum swing. In 10 or 20 years, when the Seattleites are tired of the homeless people everywhere, tired of needles, tired of trash, tired of graffiti, tired of crime, tired of taxes, the pendulum will swing back the other way. Now, that's how it works.
Just so our audience knows, James, you ran as a Democrat, correct? But you're you're interesting because I read that your campaign consultant is a Republican. So you're
right.
Yeah. So again, that plays to the point that you're not a traditional politician, but you did run as a Democrat, right?
Right. I've been a lifelong Democrat. But I've always worked with both sides of the aisle. I vote occasionally for Republican candidates, depending on the issue, depending on the person. I vote occasionally on the other side with the Democratic candidates too.
Yeah, but
so it just depends. For me, I'm not a traditional person like that. It really depends on the issues and how I feel about the issues and the candidates who's running.
But I don't know how long it has been going on, but there is a similarity with New York in the sense that in New York, the primaries decide who will be the mayor because the only Democrat against Democrat, the Republicans right now don't have a role. So it's probably the same thing in Seattle. By the way, I was in Seattle, and I love that city. It was a few years ago. We went on a vacation to Vancouver and Washington State.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right,
the thing is that you kind of did it ever cross your mind before you embarked on running for office that maybe at this historic moment your odds are not good because of what is the in thing right now?
True, but Karm, you never know until you try.
Absolutely,
You got to try.
Absolutely.
What if all the candidates in front of me drop dead of a heart attack? Well, there I am. You've got to try.
Yeah.
Hey, we give you credit for that. Yeah.
Speaking of heart attacks, what you went through medically and psychologically, that is really, you deserve another All-Star award for that.
So Karm just teed it up. James, let's get to that because Carmela is also a retired licensed social worker and marriage therapist.
I have a master's in social work, and I did it for about 35 years.
So James, what happened back in 2000? I think it was 2015, right?
Yeah, January.
That's right, exactly. Well, like I said, I was living a charmed life. I was still in great physical shape, in the gym every day, 2 hours, running, jogging 3 or 4 days a week, 3 or 4 miles a time, just really in great shape at 57 years of age, without a hint of any kind of health problems, especially heart problems. And then one day I'm out trying to play around the golf with friends of mine, and I just was feeling horribly. I mean, I was sweating profusely. My back was killing me. I was very nauseous, a little bit dizzy, lightheaded. And I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what it was. And I left the golf game. I told the guys, hey, I just can't play today. And went to go see my doctor. This is January 3rd. Well,
Not so smart. Because I read about what you did first.
Well, if I went home, I would have been carried out of the house on a stretcher with a sheet over my head.
Yeah.
Or if I kept playing golf, I would have been laid out there on the golf course. So I chose to go see my doctor. Barely made it there. I don't even remember the short drive from the golf course to the doctor's office, but I drove myself. I got to his office. I saw the reception counter briefly, and then everything just went black.
Wow.
And I woke up 2 weeks later after a 12-hour emergency open heart surgery and 5 days of a medically induced coma.
Wow.
Woke up 2 weeks later in ICU and stayed there for three and a half months.
What did the doctor say to you when you woke up?
Well, they tried to explain. It took me another couple of weeks to really come to my senses. I was on medications and all these tubes and everything coming out of me. So it took me a couple of weeks to really figure out what was going on. And he explained, you had an aortic dissection. It was just on the verge of bursting. And if those things burst, you've got about 10 heartbeats left and you just bleed out, you're done. Wow. And mine was swollen to 5 times the normal diameter of my aorta. So it was just ready to burst. And
maybe it didn't burst because you were such a good athlete all those years. And you were...
Well, we don't know. We don't know. There's a lot... we don't know if this was genetic. They tested me for all kinds of genetic abnormalities like Marfan syndrome and all these kind of things that go with big, tall people. And big, tall people are prone to this kind of thing that I had. And we lost several players. 2015, Moses Malone passed away. Daryl Dawkins passed away. Jerome Kersey passed away.
Wow.
Mark Eden just passed away earlier this year. So all these big guys from heart-related issues.
Wow. And then that wasn't, you had additional surgeries, is that right?
Yes, that was the first one. I had a follow-up surgery the second year, 2016, another follow-up in 2018, and another follow-up in 2020, right before the pandemic.
And how are you feeling today?
Now I'm better. I'm much, much better. I don't have nearly the stamina. I fatigue quickly if I overexert myself. But I'm back in the gym just about every day of the week, doing really light stuff. I used to lift up the whole gym, and 100 pound dumbbells and all kind of things. Now I'm doing 25-pound dumbbells. But it's all a matter of just maintaining now and conditioning. But at least I'm in there, and that in itself is a relief of endorphins, the feel good hormones that really lift your spirits up and keep you from going into those depressed states.
Yeah. So speaking of depressed states, after the surgery, things kind of took a left turn, a turn for the worse. Tell us what happened. Your business, your wife, your stepson, stepchild.
I think anything and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong within a 12-month, 18-month period. After the surgery, I'm pretty much flat on my back the rest of 2015. Then I go back in for my second surgery in 2016. My mother passes away, kind of unexpectedly, but she was, getting a little bit elderly, and she was not in the best of health, but still unexpected. My wife picked herself and her son up and left the marriage all of a sudden without a note, without a message, without a text message, without a phone call, with anything. I was gone for the weekend. I came back and the house was emptied of all their stuff. And they both just disappeared, and I never, ever saw them again, never heard from them again. Had to go through a divorce proceeding via email. I had her email address, and the attorney had the email. So he worked with her, got her to sign off on things, and that was it. Never saw her again. My long-running business, the Donaldson Clinic, physical therapy, sports rehab business that I had for 28 years, really started floundering because I was no longer able to be behind the wheel and continue driving this thing as I had done. We started having financial problems. I threw all of my NBA savings into my business, trying to save it. We had 25 employees, and my savings of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars just went up in smoke. And I totally emptied out my bank accounts and my investment accounts trying to save my business. It probably wasn't the wisest thing to do, but it's something I wanted to do. Home, my home, which I lived in for 40 years, went into foreclosure. I ended up losing my home to foreclosure, near eviction. I went to a bankruptcy to get all these creditors off my back and just to restart over. And so that was all through 2016, 2017, and 2018 is when I entered into my really, really dark period of 12 months of depression and a serious valley of darkness.
I think the video just clicked off. Oh, there you go.
No. Yeah.
Well, first off, I mean, it's terrible, and we're both really sorry to hear that. There was a point where you actually started to consider suicide, and where I think you were even planning it out.
That's right.
What was?
That's right. That was 2018. I think the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, 2017, were the worst part of that whole 12-month depressive state. The holidays were just horrible. I didn't want to come home anymore. I'm coming home to a big empty house anyway, and nobody was there to greet me. No child laughter. The boy was 12, 13 years old, so I was really, really close with him. No homemade cooking's going on the stove or anything. It was just a very, very difficult holiday season, 2017. January 2018, a young student athlete at my alma mater, Washington State, committed suicide, took his life. He was the heir apparent to the quarterback position on the football team. And he killed himself on campus. And this kind of really shook me to the core, because all of a sudden everybody's running around trying to tell his story, how great a kid he was, how wonderful of a life he had, how they didn't see this coming. And it shook me to the point where I said, damn it, I don't want anybody trying to run around telling my story. I'm going to hang in there and try to get through this thing. And that's when I reached out to help with my medical doctor, who suddenly or instantly diagnosed me with depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideations. He put me on prescription medications of anti-anxiety, anti-depression medications for about 6 months. He assigned me to a couple of behavioral health counselors so I can have somebody to talk to and really try to work through this stuff. And then on my own behalf, I reached out to a small, intimate group of friends, 6 or 7 friends of mine, a couple of my old basketball coaches even. Coach Lenny Wilkins was my coach at the Sonics, and Coach George Raveling at Washington State. Both these guys are in their mid-80s, and they both were right there with me, side by side, every day to help me walk through all this. So it was the toughest 12 months, and I don't wish it on my worst enemy.
Wow.
Yeah, but in the end, it turned into something very positive that you decided and that you worked on.
Yes. Well, then I decided to stay here in the first place. And now
that was a good decision. I always say next day will be better.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because after Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain took their lives, I remember reading something that said suicidal ideations can really swing quickly. So you can feel that way, but literally 24, 48, 72 hours later, you could be in a completely different mindset. And so I think your story, number one, I'm glad you didn't do it.
Very hopeful. It gives hope to people.
Yeah, no, I'm glad obviously you didn't do it, and you can tell what a sweet person you are. And I think your story is so important because there are a lot of people who are going through this. And when they hear that a big, strong guy like James Donaldson was thinking about this and decided against it, gives other people hope. You know, there's a lot of kind of silent victims out there. So especially, and I know this is close to your heart, within the African-American community, right? I mean, you don't think that they're getting enough help with mental health, right?
Absolutely. Well, you know, communities of color in general still have a big stigma and taboo about mental health issues. We just don't talk about it. You know, we've all got that crazy uncle that, you know, is stored up in the attic somewhere and nobody sees them and nobody talks about it. But we just don't talk about those kind of things. We don't reach out for help, physical health issues or mental health issues in our Black communities. And this is one of the things I'm really trying to get us to do more of and just say, hey, it's okay not to be okay. You know, they see a big, strong guy like me crying and telling my story. And I want them to feel it's totally okay to reach out for help. But in our culture, you know, we've been raised up to believe, you know, we're very religious people. So God will take care of me. God will see me through. Well, but God also gives us the wherewithal and the mindset to make good, wise decisions and reach out for help. So you can't just leave it up to God. God wants you to do your part and he'll do the rest.
So do you still have your Gift of Life Foundation?
Yes, I do. So we're gearing that up now, full speed. And that's what I'll be devoting all my time to.
Tell us about that. Tell us about that.
Well, I started the foundation up because before the pandemic, I was doing some speaking engagements locally, especially with our middle school and high school children. Here in the state of Washington, before the pandemic, we were having 2 suicides a day of school-age children between 8 and 18. During the pandemic, that number doubled. So it's 4 a day now. And all around the country, suicide rates are up, suicide attempts are up. And so I was really speaking to our young generation of students, letting them know that I had been through what so many of them are feeling. And invariably, after speaking to an assembly of 400 or 500 kids, there'd be 4 or 5 kids that come up and take me aside individually, one by one, and tell me, hey, I'm suicidal right now. And I don't know how I'm going to make it through the day. So, you know, it's so hard to hear from a 12 or 13-year-old who hadn't even begun to live yet that they're thinking about taking their life. And so that's why I started up the Your Gift of Life Foundation. This gives me a platform to get out there and speak on a professional speaking circuit about mental health issues, especially for a young generation of students. And my other focus is especially with men, trying to get men to open up and talk about these things and not get so involved with all these self-destructive behaviors that men tend to do. The drinking, the drugs, the promiscuous behaviors, the strip clubs, the gambling. Men do anything not to feel the pain, but they have to allow themselves to feel the pain and work through that with good help of medical professionals. So that's what the Gift of Life is all about. Our beneficiary, I'm trying to get more and more students of color into the mental health professions. And so if a student wants to go to a university and major in a medical professional, a mental health professional, we will pay that tuition and scholarship them. So that's the reason for the foundation, to raise monies all around the country, all around the world, that we can provide scholarship tuition money to all of our kids of color, who can then come back after graduation and provide those services to a much needed community of color, whether Black, brown, red, yellow, what have you, LGBTQ. All these communities are really suffering.
Whoever needs it.
Now, if someone's listening and they want to help the Gift of Life Foundation, how do they do that?
Well, they can go right to giftoflife.org, which is my website. Mm-hmm. And on there's a donate pay button, of course. There's ways to contribute, ways to contact me. I get contacted every day from somebody around the country telling me of what they're going through or what a loved one is going through, and they're barely hanging on. And they're inspired by my story. And I talk to them, I email them, I give them my second line phone number and say, hey, let's just talk about these things, because I've been there and I know what you're going through.
You're right.
James, but I did this for 35 years. I'm not kidding. I mean, as a social worker, I dealt with a lot of people who, went through very, very difficult times. And
right.
and where I'm going with this is that you need to get support to take all this in. Because one of the things that Joel just told me the other day when he interviewed this woman whose son committed suicide, he said to me, I had to shut off completely, and I see that he didn't shut off completely because he's a very emotional, feeling person. But I did this for 35 years, and the only way I could get through it is that my husband is a psychiatrist. He's retired now, and yes. I would unload on him all my pain and all my, you need somebody. You need really.
She abused her husband.
I abused my husband. Yes.
Speaking of shutting off, unfortunately, we're going to run out of time in about 3 minutes, thanks to Zoom. But James, I wanted to say this: you are a sweetheart of a man, and if I was there, I'd give you a hug, or maybe because of COVID, a fist bump. But there was a quote I read from you, and you're talking to a neurotic Jewish kid here who's always worrying about his family. Am I going to have enough money? Am I going to end up homeless one day? These are all thoughts that go through my head 24/7. And you have a quote that said, I feel like I'm better than ever before in so many regards, even though I have fewer material things. So my last question to you, I guess, is why and what has life taught you through this experience?
Well, it taught me that all those material things, fame, fortune, life savings can come and go. But, when you have something worth living for, a purpose-driven life, I've got a purpose to be here. God showed me when that darkness started to lift, my reason to be here for the next chapter of my life is to help others that are going through this very similar thing. I knew nothing about mental health issues before all this. I didn't really relate to it. I didn't have that empathy and that sympathy about it. But now Now I do. I tell you, people talk to me all day long, and I know exactly what they must be feeling like. And I have resources to turn them on to point them in directions where they can get help. I actually wrote a book earlier this year and just published it. It's Your Gift of Life.
Oh, wow. Celebrating your gift of life by James Donaldson.
You know what?
Excellent.
I didn't know you wrote a book. I didn't find it on the internet. Can you get it on Google?
Amazon.
You can. But if you want me to personally sign it, you can buy it on the website, celebratingyourgiftoflife.com.
Okay. We're going to do that.
And then you're going to sign it.
James, on the way over here,
I personally signed.
Carmela yelled at me and said, on all these podcasts, you always say, I'll be in touch. And don't say that if you don't mean it. But James, I won't be in touch. But if you're ever feeling down and you need someone to talk to, I'm here, and Carmela's here, and my dad, and you're getting free psychiatric and licensed social work help.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, really, I'm sure that he knows plenty of people locally, but truly, we are here for you. If we can do anything for you, let us know. And it's not a blah, blah, blah. We don't say this every day to everyone who shows up here, because you are working on something very, very important, and may God bless you with your trying.
Thank you. I can tell you two are terrific, terrific people. I would love to stay in touch with you also.
Yeah, we will.
I do have mental health professionals on my board of directors with the foundation. So we've got plenty of help.
Wait a minute. Talk to them about your feelings, not only about business.
Yes. Oh, no, we do. We're friends, and I'm on the health ministry for my church, and I work with the mental health professionals there. So no, it's not business. This is all a personal, professional relationship as well.
Good.
Yeah, but I'm totally back together again, and this is my message to everybody. You can get through it. Don't give up. Reach out for help.
Even though at the moment it looks totally hopeless when you're going through it. You agree? You agree with that?
James?
Hopelessness is the worst thing to go through when you have no hope. Yeah. So once you regain that sense of hope with the help of some people, you're back on track again and keep on working to get back to good health.
Awesome. James, we love you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes,
stay strong.
Yes, we do.
And let's all stay in touch.
Thank you. Love you guys too. Have a blessed day.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.
And we'll be right back with the new schmooze.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
You know, I don't say this often, and I'm not like a softie, but I really wanted to give James a hug. What do you think of James?
Well, I happened to see on the internet an hour-long talk by him just after these tragedies in his life happened, and I absolutely love him. Just a sweetheart
of a guy. He was making millions as an NBA basketball player. He was very intelligent. After his career, unlike a lot of players, he started a business. He was doing really well, as you just heard, and then everything turns around.
During his career already.
And I'll be honest, I don't know how I would have handled that.
You would handle it great, man. You would have been
just like... the upside for me is I've been a nobody. I've just been... as they say in...
you know what I was thinking?
You know what I am in the fight? And this is why I love the fight game so much, because there's so many parallels to life. I'm just a 2-bit journeyman. And before I die, though, I will be
everybody want to throw up right now watching this?
Now,
He's like self-pity times squared or cubed.
Because of my new demands I have with this career, with this back in news, I didn't have time for the news schmooze this week. So Carmela says she wants to talk about some of the big topics. What would you like to talk about in the news today?
Well, I want to appeal everybody who watches this to please, through their church, through different organizations, through the Jewish Federation, through the whatever Baptist Union, whatever different Haitian organizations, to please give to Haiti. Haiti is in a terrible, terrible situation. Our my sister's only daughter works for UNICEF, and she was there after the 2010 earthquake. I just have a point to make here.
Make the point, Karm.
The point is that after the 2010 tragedy, the whole world was doing something for a very short time, relatively speaking, but at least they were doing something. Now we are 10 years later, there is COVID on top of it. There was a tropical storm. There is Afghanistan. So Afghanistan completely pushed out Haiti out of the picture, and Haiti is really lost in the shuffle. And poverty, it's considered the poorest country in the
Karm,
Western Hemisphere.
You were collecting baby clothes and things of that nature, correct? To bring over there?
I donated financially, but on top of it, we are trying to do that too, yes.
Don't donate too much financially. That's my money.
Not funny at all. It's kind of sick way to even joking.
Now, what do you think? This actually tugged at my heartstrings. I interviewed a former Afghan vet who served in Afghanistan. She's not Afghan. She's American. And I interviewed the mother who we talked about with James. Her son survives. They trained for 2 months in Kabul. When they were done training, on day 2 of the battlefield, his 2 best friends get shot, one in the neck, one in the head, both killed within a day of each other. He survives. He gets back here and commits suicide. He ODs on prescription pills. The mother told me that when he went into the VA, they asked him if he was okay. First, they asked him where his guns were, and he said he locked them in a safe in his mother's house. She said he had tears streaming down his face, and they said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine," as he was literally soaking the floor with tears, went home and killed himself. What are your thoughts about this in light of what's going on in Afghanistan, Karm?
I am very, very concerned that there will be a real spike in young men who served there, veterans killing themselves
because they feel like it was for naught.
What do you mean they're feeling? It was for naught.
What a disgrace! Do you think that America is taking a hit right now with its credibility?
I think that America is hitting a gigantic.
By the way, both of them said this to me. They said that they now fear, on top of women losing their rights over there and all that, they now fear a major terror attack coming to the U.S.
Yeah, that I'm not so worried about.
No?
No.
Why not? It's unlike
because there is COVID. There is fires. There are fires in California. There are so many. This is a whole continent. There are always tragedies. I'm not so afraid of that, honestly, as I'm afraid for the women of Afghanistan. They are going to. I heard they shot a woman because she wasn't wearing a burqa, the traditional icon.
Burqa.
Well, how do you pronounce
burqa.
it? Burqa.
Okay, let's end on a happy note here.
Yeah, this was a very dragged down.
This was a very depressing.
Very depressing, even though it was hopeful in the sense that James Donaldson pulled himself out of the depth and used the energy that he has and the
he already texted
experience.
Us. James just texted to say thank you so much. He said it was a wonderful time, and he really wants. I'm paraphrasing. This is a long text, and he says he really wants to stay in touch with us. That we are wonderful people.
So I'm going to get his books, and I will have it signed.
We should get his number too.
Yeah.
Let's end on a happy news note.
Okay, so his book can be bought on Gift of Life.
We're not done with it, Karma. We're still in the news schmooze, Karm.
Okay, but I just wanted to open a parenthesis. People are intelligent enough to know that it's a parenthesis.
Okay.
Gift of Life. What is the title of the book? James Donaldson is the author.
I think it's called The Gift of Life. We'll have to go back and look at it.
Yeah, I think it's The Gift of Life because his foundation is Gift of Life. And his story is not, he didn't tell us the whole story. He left out a lot of very interesting, it's a very uplifting book.
Karm, your thought process is like that of an EKG. It's just all over the place. It's unreal. Like I'm trying to keep us on.
It shows how your heart is doing.
I'm trying to keep us
Joel,
on track.
It shows how your heart is doing.
Final news story. Let's end on a nice light note.
Okay.
John Slater, the senior vice president of in-flight services at United Airlines, released a memo this past week saying to all his staff, please remember that there are designated items on board that may be used in difficult situations, and alternative measures such as tape or duct tape should never be used. A couple of weeks back, there was an unruly passenger on his way down here to Miami, and he got so out of control that they duct taped him to his seat.
What's a duct tape?
That silver, thick, strong tape.
Yeah. Packaging
So
tape.
the senior VP at United basically says,
don't use duct tape.
Yeah, if someone's acting up, please do not duct tape them to their seat.
Because it's not good PR.
I love watching this guy get duct taped. Carmela, I should duct tape you.
You are so sick.
Karm, I should duct tape you.
How did I give birth to such a sicko?
Karm, that is a good alternative for me. We'll be right back with 3 questions for Grandma.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
And we are back. Karm, question number 1. Why are there clouds in the atmosphere? And those were the exact words by my daughter, Vida Aaliyah, age 7.
It's a very good question, Vida. And I can be as into it and say that it's...
we should have asked Matt Brode last week.
No. I think it's a condensation of humidity.
Next question.
I like this. I just made it up. It's good.
This is 2 separate questions, but could be considered one, I believe. Why do people burp?
Oh, I know the answer to that one.
What is it?
It starts when you are just born and you swallow air, and then the air comes back up.
Why do people yawn?
Oh, I know that one also, I think. Just before, because you don't get enough oxygen, as you are getting very sleepy, you're breathing. I'm making up this part. But I know that it's like replenishing oxygen because you are breathing more shallow when you are falling asleep.
Karm, I was thinking yesterday, we have sort of given up, and I'm going to resuscitate it.
Death no pun intended.
Yeah, This Week in Death and Dying. Have you heard anything this week? Anything going on?
Yes.
What?
What?
What's going on?
No, it's very upset.
Alzheimer's? What is it?
No.
No, tell me.
No.
Just give me a hint. Give me a hint.
No.
What do you mean?
No. I'm not. I'll tell you in the car.
No, just tell me. Give me a. What is it?
I don't want to.
Is it cancer? Is it a heart attack?
It's cancer.
We bring this up Carmela knows someone on the injured reserve list. That's a baseball term. Every week she's telling me someone's dying of something, and we stopped doing this segment.
Well,
it made me think about it.
I explained it to you, and I explained to you why.
Why?
Because we are in that age group. Every week, we could start a new segment of telling you all the people who already died.
Karm,
One day, Roy, for some strange reason, wanted me to compile a list of all the people that were our friends and associates and who died. And I said, no, I am not going to waste
Could you please do that for next week's show?
I 100%.
We could dedicate a whole show to reading off the names of people who died.
No, don't even.
We could do that for 9/11, except it'll be our own little 9/11.
Don't joke. This is it's called life.
Listen, I have such a headache. Let me just tell everyone what happened real quick before we say goodbye.
Oh, you told already everyone.
Carmela told me to be on time today. I have kids. I work till 2 a.m. I get there.
Wait a minute. Hold it. The orchestra.
We
should always have the orchestra here.
On the way there, we find out our studio engineer is stuck up in Tallahassee. So he had to FaceTime me through all the technical aspects of setting up this podcast, which I'm one notch above Carmela when it comes to tech, which
well,
is not
actually
very hot.
he isn't, because he gets so nervous and angry that he thinks I actually helped him.
No, you didn't help me. Then Carmela starts directing me. She knows nothing, directing me all over the place.
When I was used to drive with Roy, I had no idea where we are going. He drives and I tell him which way to go, but I have no idea. In the end, we end up completely in the opposite place, but I had to tell him how to do it.
Everyone, it was a trying week. It was a difficult week. We made it through. We survived. I actually will probably call James Donaldson for help.
I have to tell you, it's not, don't joke about this. No, I tell you, very honestly, it was a difficult week. It was very difficult because
Carmela, you know I was trying to wrap the show again. Oh. Every time I try to wrap it up, she just starts a new. Go ahead, Karm. Finish your thought.
I'm sorry. No, but it was a difficult week because, you see, my husband is in a wheelchair, and we have a wonderful young woman from Haiti who is helping.
Just say that Dad's nurse went to Jamaica. All right, everyone. Love you, America.
That's not the story. That's not this. Okay, love everybody. Goodbye. The end.